The sun rose over GalacticPrime, painting the cliffs in gold and orange. The morning wind carried the scent of wildflowers, mixed with the earthy aroma of the forest below. Valeera moved carefully along the ridges, her senses alert. She had led humans through dangerous terrain before, in practice drills, but never like this. Never with one standing so confidently beside her. Commander Elias walked steadily behind her. He adjusted the strap of his pack and observed the land with intense focus. Unlike Kailari, who relied heavily on instinct and strength, Elias seemed to notice everything. The subtle curves of the terrain, the way the shadows moved across the ground, the distant sounds of creatures hidden deep in the forest. Valeera found herself watching him closely. His calm focus was almost unsettling. "You understand the dangers here, yes?" Valeera asked. Her voice was steady, but it carried an edge she rarely used. "I do," Elias replied without hesitation. "Every world has its challenges. My job is to understand them and adapt." Valeera's lips curved slightly. His answer was simple, yet it held confidence. Confidence that did not come from power or skill, but from something deeper, a determination that made him seem larger than he actually was. They moved through the forest together, the dense canopy above filtering sunlight into dappled patterns on the ground. Strange creatures watched them from the shadows, their eyes glowing faintly. Valeera recognized most of them. Predators, scavengers, and birds that could tear flesh in seconds. Yet she noticed that Elias did not flinch once. Instead, he slowed, studied, and adjusted his steps carefully. "Most Kailari would be uneasy here," she said, watching him. "Even I remain cautious at times, though you would not know it." Elias looked at her, his eyes bright with curiosity. "Caution is different from fear," he said. "I am cautious. I do not underestimate this place. But I am not afraid." Valeera paused, noting the subtle distinction in his words. Kailari often claimed fearlessness, but true courage was rare. It required more than skill. It required understanding danger and choosing to act anyway. She had seen humans claim bravery before, but they often fell short when tested. Elias, however, seemed different. Hours passed as they moved deeper into the forest. The terrain grew uneven, roots twisting like serpents across the ground. Strange plants with luminescent leaves lit their path faintly in shaded areas. Valeera noticed how Elias adjusted his steps, careful to avoid tripping or disturbing the environment. He was precise, deliberate, and patient, a stark contrast to Kailari warriors who relied on instinct and speed. "Your people survive in many worlds," Valeera observed. "You adapt quickly, even in hostile environments."
"How do you do it?"
Elias smiled faintly. "We learn. We observe. We fail and then we try again. Fear is natural, but we use it to prepare ourselves, not to stop ourselves." Valeera thought about his words. Fear as preparation. It was a perspective she had never considered. Kailari trained to dominate fear, to ignore it completely. But humans seemed to embrace it differently. They reached a river that cut through the forest like a silver ribbon. Its waters were cold and fast, but clear enough to see the stones beneath. Valeera stepped carefully onto a large rock at the edge, observing the flow. Elias followed, stepping from stone to stone with surprising balance. "You handle this well," Valeera said. "Many Kailari would slip." "It is practice," he said simply. "And observation. I study how the world works, then adjust." Valeera nodded. Observation. That was the human strength she had seen before. Not brute force, not superior instinct, but the ability to see patterns, predict danger, and adapt. As they continued, a shadow flickered across the forest floor. Valeera froze instantly, her body tensed, muscles ready to strike. Elias, however, remained calm. He did not move, but his eyes tracked the movement carefully. A creature emerged, a predator with long, curved claws and glowing eyes. It stalked silently, every movement deliberate. Valeera would have met it head-on, attacking with precision and speed. But Elias, he waited. He studied the predator's steps, noting its hesitation. Then, when the creature lunged, he sidestepped and used a simple device from his pack, a net that expanded with surprising force to trap it. Valeera's eyes widened. She had expected a fight of strength, but not this. The human had used intelligence, timing, and a simple tool to neutralize danger without bloodshed. It was remarkable. "You think too small sometimes," she admitted quietly, though her pride made the words difficult. "Kailari rely on power and skill. But sometimes strength is not enough, Elias glanced at her. Strength without understanding is meaningless. Knowledge can be stronger than muscle. Valeera felt a strange respect for him. His calmness, his resourcefulness, his courage, it was not the same as hers. It was different, yet equally powerful. As they set up camp that evening, Valeera observed him again. Humans had a strange way of creating warmth, of adapting to the environment with minimal resources. Elias built a fire carefully, conserving energy while maximizing light and heat. He arranged their small shelter with efficiency that even Valeera admired. "You are skilled," she said almost reluctantly. "Most humans could not survive this forest overnight." Elias shrugged. "We learn quickly when survival depends on it. Every challenge is an opportunity to improve." Valeera sat back, staring into the fire. She had faced countless dangers, but she felt a new tension inside her, a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. Humans were fragile, yes. They could be hurt easily. But Elias had shown her that bravery was not just about facing danger without fear. It was about understanding it, adapting to it and acting regardless. The night deepened, and strange calls echoed from the forest. Valeera was ready, alert, her body prepared for action. Elias, however, remained calm, even peaceful. He spoke softly, telling stories of distant worlds and human exploration. He spoke of stars, of planets beyond imagination, of challenges humans had faced and overcome. Valeera listened, intrigued. She had always believed that courage came from skill and strength alone. Yet this human's stories revealed something different. Courage could also come from determination, from curiosity, from the refusal to give up even when everything seemed impossible. A breeze rustled the leaves above them, and Valeera felt a shiver, not from fear but from realization. She had faced everything this planet could throw at her. She had conquered every predator, survived every storm, and outmatched every rival. Yet Elias was teaching her something new, something she had never experienced. "What is it?" he asked, noticing her gaze. Valeera hesitated. I am not sure. You are different from anything I have ever faced, not in danger but in mind and spirit." Elias smiled faintly. "Perhaps we are the same in a way. We both face challenges. We both adapt. We both survive. But you have strength I admire, and I have curiosity you may not yet understand fully." Valeera considered this. Humans were strange, fragile yet capable, small yet remarkable. She had thought herself fearless, but now she questioned whether she had truly understood courage until she had met him. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the night sky. Valeera sat quietly, her mind alive with thought. For the first time she realized that fearlessness was not just about confronting danger without trembling. It could also be about learning, adapting, and choosing to move forward in the face of the unknown. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring new challenges. The humans would explore more of GalacticPrime. Valeera would continue to observe, to guide, and perhaps even to learn. The thought was strange, but she could not deny it. She looked forward to it. For the first time in her life, Valeera felt that meeting a human was not just a curiosity, it was a lesson, and she feared nothing, except the possibility that she might be changed by what she learned. The morning sun cut through the mist of GalacticPrime, painting the cliffs with a pale golden light. Valeera stood at the edge of the volcanic caverns, their jagged entrances yawning like dark, hungry mouths. This place was one of the most dangerous regions on the planet, where molten rock flowed in rivers, toxic gases drifted unpredictably, and strange predators lurked in shadowed corners. Even the bravest Kalari warriors rarely ventured here. Valeera watched Commander Elias step forward confidently, his gaze steady. Unlike others who would hesitate, he did not flinch at the heat rising from the cavern entrances or the strange hum of the volcanic activity. He simply observed, taking careful steps. "You understand what lies ahead?" Valeera said, her voice steady but firm. "Most Kalari warriors avoid this place. Many die here. I will not hold your hand. This is a test of courage, skill, and resilience." Elias nodded. "I understand. We humans adapt, we learn, and we survive." Valeera's eyes narrowed slightly. He spoke boldly, but that was not unusual for humans. What intrigued her was the calm in his tone, the certainty that came not from ignorance but from experience. She decided this would be the true test, not of strength but of character. The first cavern they entered was narrow, twisting, and filled with a faint orange glow from molten veins running along the walls. The heat was intense enough to make unprotected skin blister, yet Elias moved without hesitation. He studied the terrain, noting cracks in the stone, unstable surfaces, and pockets of toxic gas. Valera watched silently. Most Kalari relied on instinct alone, but Elias used both mind and body. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from deeper within the cavern. Valera froze instantly, her hand resting on her blade. A predator emerged, a massive creature with scales like blackened metal and claws that could tear stone. It hissed, steam rising from its nostrils, eyes glowing like molten gold. Valera had faced similar predators before, but she did not attack immediately. Instead, she observed Elias. He did not draw a weapon. He slowly reached into his pack and produced a small device. It emitted a soft pulse, creating a field that confused the predator's senses. The creature stumbled, unsure, and Elias moved quickly to guide it toward a side passage, keeping both himself and Valera safe. Valera's eyes widened. The humans relied on ingenuity, not just brute strength. Kalari warriors often underestimated such thinking. They relied on their skill to fight and survive. Elias had survived not by confrontation but by understanding and adapting. "You are different from any human I have known," Valera said quietly, almost to herself. Elias glanced at her. "And you are different from any Kalari I have known," he replied with a faint smile. "We all have our strengths. You have courage. I have resourcefulness. Together we survive." They continued deeper into the volcanic labyrinth. The caverns twisted in ways that made navigation difficult, and the heat was oppressive. Strange plants grew along the walls, their roots reaching for moisture in the molten soil. Some emitted faint light, illuminating jagged obstacles. Valera led the way, testing Elias's ability to keep pace. "Most humans would have turned back by now," she said. "They would have learned nothing," Elias replied. "We do not give up. Challenges teach us who we are." Hours passed. They climbed steep ridges of blackened stone, crossed narrow bridges of hardened lava, and crawled through tunnels where the air was thick and hot. At every turn, Valera tested him, placing obstacles that would challenge not just physical ability but mental focus. She expected exhaustion, hesitation, or fear. Yet Elias continued calmly, observing and adapting. Eventually, they reached a chamber where molten rock bubbled in a small lake. The heat was unbearable and the air shimmered with energy. Here, Valera decided to test him fully. "Step across," she said, pointing to a narrow path of solid rock cutting through the molten lake. "One false move and you fall. Many have tried this. Few have succeeded." Elias looked at the path, then back at her. His gaze did not waver. "I will cross," he said. Valera watched as he began carefully, placing each foot with precision. Unlike Kalari warriors, who often relied on speed and confidence to navigate danger, Elias moved deliberately, calculating each step. The heat rose from the molten rock, making the air thick, but he did not falter. Halfway across, the rock beneath his foot cracked. Valera tensed, expecting a fall, but Elias adjusted instantly, shifting his weight and continued without panic. It was not strength that saved him. It was awareness, focus, and a calm mind. Valera felt a strange mixture of admiration and unease. She had faced countless challenges, yet this human had shown resilience in ways she had never encountered. She realized that fearlessness was not simply about confronting danger. It was about maintaining composure, making the right decisions, and moving forward even when everything seemed against you. When Elias reached the other side safely, he turned to her and offered a hand. "Your tests are challenging," he said, "but they teach. I have learned much already." Valera took his hand briefly, a small acknowledgement of respect. "You are not like the others," she admitted. "Most Kalari would have failed here, or refused the test altogether." Elias smiled faintly. "We humans learn through trial and error, we adapt, and we grow stronger with every challenge." They rested briefly, catching their breath. Valera observed him closely. He was exhausted, yes, but not defeated. There was no panic, no complaint. Only focus, determination, and an unusual kind of courage. As they moved on, the caverns grew more dangerous. Toxic gases drifted from cracks in the walls and strange predators lurked in the shadows, their eyes glowing in the dim light. Valera continued to test him, each obstacle designed to push both body and mind. At one point, a massive rock slide blocked their path. Valera prepared to climb over it, But Elias examined the rocks carefully. Using tools from his pack, he constructed a simple yet effective system to shift the stones safely. Valera watched in silence. He had solved a problem she had assumed required brute force and Kalari skill. "You think too rigidly sometimes," she said quietly. "Strength is not always the answer." Elias looked at her. "Nor is instinct alone. Observation, analysis, and cooperation are often stronger than any weapon." Valera considered his words. Kalari relied on instinct and raw skill. Humans relied on ingenuity and learning. Both were valid, but she felt a growing respect for his method. As night fell, they set up a small camp deep in the caverns, away from the heat of molten rivers. Elias worked quickly, arranging their supplies efficiently. Valera sat silently watching him. "You handle every challenge with calm," she said. "I have never seen a human so composed in danger." "It is not bravery alone," Elias replied. "It is understanding. Knowing what is dangerous, preparing for it, and acting. Fear exists, but we do not let it control us." Valera thought about her own life. She had faced death countless times, yet she had never truly understood fear. Not like this. She had ignored it, conquered it, dominated it. But Elias, he used fear as a guide, a teacher, a reason to grow stronger. The cavern walls echoed with strange sounds, distant rumbles, the hiss of molten rock, the cries of unseen creatures. Yet both Valera and Elias remained alert, calm, and ready. For the first time, Valera felt that courage was not simply about facing danger. It was about understanding it, respecting it, and choosing to act anyway. By the time they exited the caverns the next morning, Valera had reached a quiet realization. Elias had passed her tests, not by brute strength or instinct, but by showing resilience, intelligence, and courage in a way Kalari rarely did. Humans, she understood now, were capable of bravery unlike any other species she had known. For the first time, Valera questioned her own understanding of fearlessness. She had always believed that courage came from skill and strength alone. Yet Elias had shown her another path, one that combined mind, heart, and spirit. She looked at him as they emerged into the morning light, the sky streaked with gold and violet. Elias turned to her, smiling faintly, and Valera realized something she had never admitted before. She felt respect. Deep respect for a species she had once considered fragile. She feared nothing, yet she was beginning to understand that courage came in many forms, and sometimes it was the smallest, most fragile beings who could teach the greatest lessons. And Elias, the human, had just done so. The wind howled across the cliffs of GalacticPrime as Valera stood at the edge, eyes scanning the horizon. Something was coming. Something unlike the threats she had faced before. Her senses, honed through countless battles, tingled with urgency. "Valera," Kalen called from behind, his voice tight with tension. "Scouts report ships approaching." "They are not Kalari. They move with purpose. And they are many." Valera's jaw tightened. She had faced invaders before, rival clans, mercenaries, and even rogue predators, but this was different. The ships glinted in the atmosphere, moving swiftly, armed with weapons designed to crush any planetary defenses. This was no exploration mission. This was war. She turned to Elias, who had been observing the incoming fleet. His face was calm, almost unreadable. "Commander," Valera said, "these ships, they will destroy everything in their path. You understand what is at stake?" Elias nodded. "We understand, and we will help. Humans do not turn away from threats even when they are outnumbered. We adapt, we fight, and we survive." Valera studied him. His calm resolve reminded her of the courage she had seen during the volcanic caverns. But now the stakes were far higher. Hundreds of Kalari lives, and possibly the planet itself, were at risk. She realized that she could not fight alone. "Not this time. We will fight together," she said finally. "But know this, the Kalari fight to win. We will not hesitate and we will not retreat." "I would expect nothing less," Elias replied. The combined force of Kalari and humans prepared for battle. Kalari warriors sharpened their blades and checked their weapons, moving with precision and discipline. The humans worked quickly, setting up defensive positions, deploying sensors, and improvising tools from their packs. Valera observed the humans closely, impressed by their ingenuity. Their weapons were small, fragile by Kalari standards, but their strategy was extraordinary. "They are thinking differently," she said quietly. "Not with brute force, but with intelligence. That is their strength. Elias glanced at her, a faint smile on his face. Exactly. Bravery is not always about strength. Sometimes it is about planning, timing, and acting decisively when the moment comes. As the enemy fleet descended, the battle began. Energy blasts streaked across the sky, lighting the clouds with brilliant colors. Kalari warriors charged fearlessly, blades slicing through enemy forces, while human teams moved with precision, using technology to anticipate attacks and protect allies. Valeera fought alongside them, her blade moving like a shadow, swift and precise. Yet she noticed something remarkable. The humans did not panic when confronted with danger. They adapted instantly, finding weak points in enemy formations, using their tools and wits to turn the tide. A squadron of enemy drones swooped down toward a group of Kalari archers. Without hesitation, Elias deployed a device that emitted a pulse, disabling the drones temporarily. Then, using a simple but effective signal, he coordinated the humans to flank the attackers. Within moments, the threat was neutralized. Valeera felt a surge of respect. Humans were fragile, yes, but their courage, adaptability, and intelligence made them formidable allies. She realized that she had underestimated them before. "Your people fight well," she said to Elias during a brief pause in the battle. "Not as individuals," he replied. "We fight as a team. That is our strength. Alone we are fragile. Together we are unstoppable." Valeera considered his words carefully. Kalari often relied on individual skill and strength. Humans relied on collaboration, ingenuity, and persistence. Both methods had merit, but in this battle, the human approach was proving invaluable. The enemy fleet pressed harder, focusing their attack on the cliffs where the Kalari defensive positions were strongest. Valeera rallied her warriors, cutting through enemy lines with unmatched precision. Beside her, Elias coordinated the humans, using sensors and devices to detect enemy movements and guide Kalari forces effectively. At one critical moment, a massive energy blast struck the cliffs, sending rocks tumbling down. Several Kalari were trapped beneath the debris. Without hesitation, Elias and his team worked to free them, using simple tools and clever techniques. Valeera was struck by the human willingness to risk themselves for others, their courage not in attacking but in protecting. This is different, she thought. Humans do not just fight for survival, they fight for each other. As the battle raged, Valeera led a strike team into the heart of the enemy formation. Her warriors were fierce, their blades flashing, but Elias followed with his team, providing critical support. He anticipated attacks, guided Kalari through hazards, and neutralized threats with precision. Together, their combined strength turned the tide of the battle. One particularly dangerous moment came when an enemy ship descended directly above the Kalari command post. Valeera knew the structure could not withstand a direct strike. She moved to intercept, ready to destroy the ship herself. But Elias had a plan. Using a small device, he redirected the ship's energy beam just enough to prevent destruction, while giving Valeera the chance to strike. The enemy ship collapsed in flames and the command post remained intact. Valeera's heart raced, not with fear but with amazement. She had fought countless battles alone, relying on her strength, skill, and fearlessness. Yet now she realized that the humans' courage, intelligence, and teamwork could achieve what she alone could not. When the final enemy ships retreated, the Kalari and humans stood together, exhausted but victorious. The cliffs were scarred, and the forest below showed signs of the battle's fury, but the planet remained safe. Valeera looked at Elias, her expression unreadable. "You are remarkable," she said quietly. "I believed humans were fragile, weak, and unprepared for danger, but you have shown me a different kind of strength. One I had not considered." Elias smiled faintly. "Strength comes in many forms, Valeera. We are not stronger than your people in skill or instinct, but we endure. We adapt, we protect. That is how we survive and thrive." Valeera nodded slowly. She had feared nothing in her life: storms, predators, rival warriors. But this human had shown her courage beyond the physical. He had faced danger with intellect, adaptability, and compassion. It was a kind of fearlessness she had never known. The Kalari Council arrived to assess the aftermath of the battle. They looked at the humans with a mixture of suspicion and awe. Many whispered about the bravery of these small, fragile creatures, and Valeera remained silent, her mind occupied with a new understanding of courage. Elias spoke to the council. "We humans came to observe, not conquer. But when danger threatened your world, we fought to protect it alongside you. That is what we do." We do not give up. We do not turn away. We face the impossible together, the council murmured among themselves. Valera watched quietly, her respect for Elias growing. He had proven what she had begun to understand, that humans could be extraordinary allies, not because of brute strength but because of courage, determination, and the will to act even in the face of overwhelming odds. As the sun set over the battle-scarred cliffs, Valera stood beside Elias, the humans prepared to depart, their ship ready for launch. She felt a strange sense of loss at the thought of their leaving. These small, fragile beings had taught her lessons she could never have learned alone. "You have changed my understanding of fearlessness," she said quietly. "I believed I knew courage. But you have shown me there is more to it than strength and skill." Elias looked at her, calm and steady. "And you have shown me that courage can take many forms. Your people fight with honor, skill, and fearlessness. Together we can face any challenge," Valera nodded. For the first time she felt a sense of partnership, of mutual respect that transcended species. The humans were not weak, fragile, or limited. They were resilient, intelligent, and brave in ways that even she could admire. The ship lifted off, disappearing into the sky. Valera watched until it was only a speck among the stars. She felt a quiet determination settle within her. GalacticPrime had survived this attack, but the lesson she had learned would endure far longer. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were allies, friends, and a reminder that courage could come in many forms. She turned to Kalen, who had been watching silently. "Prepare the defenses," she said. "We may not know what the future holds, but we will face it together, with strength, and with courage of many kinds." And for the first time, Valera felt that fearlessness was not just about facing danger alone. It was about understanding, respecting, and sometimes relying on others, especially humans, whose courage was as extraordinary as any Kalari warriors. She had feared nothing before. Now she understood something greater, the strength that comes from alliance, trust, and shared bravery. The skies over GalacticPrime glowed with the soft hues of dawn. The battle-scarred cliffs were quiet now, the echoes of conflict fading into the wind. Valera stood at the edge of the plateau, watching as Commander Elias's ship prepared to depart. The humans had proven themselves, but now it was time to leave. Valera's heart felt unexpectedly heavy. She had faced countless dangers, battled predators, storms, and rival warriors. Yet nothing had ever left such a mark on her. The humans, fragile, clever, persistent, had changed her understanding of courage. Elias approached her, his calm presence as steady as always. "It is time for us to return," he said, voice soft yet firm. "GalacticPrime is safe for now, but remember, courage comes in many forms. Not just strength and skill, but determination, intelligence, and the will to act when it matters most." Valera nodded, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "I have learned much from you, Commander. I believed I knew fearlessness, but you have shown me that there is more to courage than I ever imagined." Elias smiled faintly. "And I have learned from you, Valera. Your bravery, your skill, and your resolve are extraordinary. Humans and Kalari together can face any challenge." The ship's engines hummed, the vibrations sending faint tremors through the ground. Valera felt a mix of admiration and respect for these humans who could face the universe's dangers with such calm confidence. She had always believed that only Kalari could master fear and danger, but now she knew differently. Humans had their own way of confronting the unknown, through observation, adaptation, and relentless determination. "You will return to your people, I assume?" Valera asked, her voice steady but tinged with curiosity. Elias nodded. "Yes, we must continue our journey. Other worlds await. But GalacticPrime will remain in my memory. Your courage and your people's strength are lessons we will carry forward." Valera considered this. Humans were explorers, travelers, and learners. They faced danger not for conquest but for understanding. That was a concept she had only just begun to comprehend. Kalari fought to survive, to protect, to dominate. But humans seemed to seek knowledge even amidst peril, and that gave them a different kind of strength. "Will you return?" she asked, almost hoping for the answer. "Perhaps," Elias said. "The universe is vast and our paths may cross again. If it does, I hope it will be as allies, not strangers." Valera's eyes softened. She had faced death many times, yet the presence of humans had shown her that courage was not just about fearlessness. It was about connection, understanding, and working together. That lesson, she realized, was more powerful than any blade or skill. As the ship lifted off, Valera felt a quiet determination settle within her. The humans had come, shown their courage, and left, but their influence remained. She would carry their lessons forward, teaching her people that bravery was more than just strength. It was resilience, ingenuity, and the willingness to act even when the odds seemed impossible. The Kalari Council approached, their expressions a mixture of respect and awe. Kalen stood beside Valera, eyes wide with admiration. Commander Elias and his people. Kalen began, I have never seen bravery like that. Not just in battle, but in every decision they made. They are remarkable. Valera nodded. Yes, and we have much to learn from them. Humans are small, fragile in appearance, but their courage is extraordinary. They think, adapt, and protect in ways even we do not always understand. The council members murmured among themselves. Kalari often judged strength by skill in battle or mastery of physical power, but now they were beginning to see a new dimension. Courage could take many forms. Bravery was not just facing danger with a blade, it was facing the unknown with intelligence, perseverance, and a willingness to act despite fear. Valera led Kalen and the council to the cliffs. Where the sunrise painted the world in soft gold, she felt a sense of renewal, a quiet pride in both her people and their new allies. Humans had shown that even in the face of overwhelming odds, determination and ingenuity could triumph. You have changed my understanding of courage, she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. I have faced everything GalacticPrime could throw at me, and yet I have learned more from a human in a few days than from a lifetime of battles. Kalen looked at her, his eyes bright. Will humans come back? He asked. They may, Valera said. And when they do, we will be ready, not just with strength but with understanding. Together we can face whatever challenges the universe sends our way. The wind swept across the cliffs, carrying the memory of the battle and the presence of the humans. Valera took a deep breath, feeling the lesson settle within her. Fearlessness was not the absence of fear. It was the choice to act, to adapt, and to endure. It was a lesson she had always known in theory, but now she understood it in practice. As the day progressed, Valera and her people began to repair the damage left by the battle. Trees had been scorched, cliffs scarred, and the forest floor was littered with debris. Yet there was a sense of hope, a realization that survival was not just about brute force. It was about learning, adapting, and working together. Valera moved through the forests, observing her people. They were stronger, wiser, and more aware. The humans had left an impression that went beyond the battlefield. They had taught Kalari that courage could be quiet, deliberate, and brilliant in ways that mere skill could not achieve. As night fell, Valera stood alone on the cliffs, gazing at the stars. The ship was long gone, but she could still feel its presence in her mind. The humans had come, shown her a new perspective, and left. She realized that she was no longer the same warrior who had feared nothing. She was stronger, not just in body or skill, but in understanding. Perhaps fearlessness is not about never fearing. She whispered to herself. Perhaps it is about learning, adapting, and acting despite fear. Perhaps it is about courage of mind as much as courage of body. The stars twinkled above, infinite and mysterious. Valera knew that the universe held countless challenges, dangers, and unknown worlds. Yet she no longer felt alone in facing them. Humans had shown her that courage was universal, and that allies could be found in the most unexpected places. She turned back toward the cliffs, where her people were rebuilding, preparing, and learning. The memory of Elias and his crew would remain, a reminder that bravery came in many forms, and that even the smallest, most fragile beings could inspire greatness. Valera lifted her head, feeling a quiet strength settle within her. She had feared nothing before, but now she understood a deeper courage, one that combined strength, intelligence, perseverance, and the willingness to protect others. One that transcended species, borders, and worlds. The humans were gone, but their lessons would endure. GalacticPrime was safe for now, but more importantly, its people had learned the true meaning of courage, and Valera, the fearless guardian, had learned something she would carry for the rest of her life. That bravery is not measured by what you can conquer alone, but by what you can achieve together. As the first light of dawn broke across the cliffs, Valera felt a sense of peace she had never known. She had faced death, danger, and the unknown countless times, and yet she had learned that the universe was bigger, more complex, and more inspiring than she had ever imagined. She had feared nothing until a human approached, and because of that she understood that fearlessness was not the absence of fear. It was the courage to act, the wisdom to adapt, and the strength to grow. And now, Valeria was ready for anything. Commander Leora of the Zinthari Defense Fleet was known across the galaxy for one thing. She feared nothing. Not pirates, not alien warlords, not even the mysterious phenomena that sometimes swallowed entire fleets without warning. Leora's name alone could make the boldest enemies pause, reconsider, or retreat. Her reputation was carved from countless victories, daring missions, and battles that no other being had survived. She moved through the corridors of her flagship, the Starlance, with a calm, steady stride. The ship hummed softly beneath her feet, a perfect blend of technology and power, capable of moving faster than light and striking with devastating precision. Officers and crew members snapped to attention as she passed, bowing slightly in respect. Leora barely noticed. Her mind was focused on the next assignment. A routine patrol at first, but something unusual had reached her attention. It started with a transmission. Unlike the usual diplomatic messages or automated fleet reports, this one came from a small human colony at the far edge of known space. The humans, she had been told, were primitive and fragile, not worth serious attention. But this message was different. It was confident, clear, and somehow bold. Commander Leora, the transmission read, "We are aware of your presence in the sector. We wish to meet you. No weapons, no tricks. Just a conversation." Leora raised an eyebrow. She had faced warlords who threatened to destroy planets, alien species whose very biology could kill her crew in seconds, and AI constructs that calculated the death of hundreds before she could blink. And yet here was a tiny human colony, sending her a message like they expected to be treated as equals. The thought amused her. Perhaps it was a joke. Perhaps the humans did not understand the meaning of fear. She had made it her life's mission to crush fear wherever it appeared, and now this small species thought they could stand before her. She called her second-in-command Captain Joril, a seasoned officer with sharp instincts. "Prepare the fleet," she said. "We are visiting this human colony. I want to see if they are brave or foolish." Joril looked concerned. "Commander, reports suggest humans are fragile. Their technology is limited. Perhaps caution." "I do not need caution," Leora interrupted. Her voice was calm but firm, leaving no room for argument. "I need observation. I want to see courage in its raw form. Humans may surprise us, or they may not survive." The fleet moved with precision, ships lined up in formation, their engines glowing softly as they approached the human planet. A small world of blue and green at the edge of the sector. Leora stood on the observation deck of the Starlance, arms crossed, watching the planet spin beneath her. "Strange," she murmured. "It seems peaceful. No orbital defenses, no hidden weapons. Perhaps they are naive." Joril frowned. "Commander, this could be a trap." "Perhaps," Leora replied. "But even traps require courage to survive. I will see if these humans have any." When the fleet landed, the humans were ready, not with weapons or war machines, but with calm and dignity. Leora stepped down from her ship, her boots clicking against the metallic surface of the landing pad. The air was breathable, the sun warm, and the small group of humans waiting for her showed no signs of fear. And then she saw him. Captain Ethan Vance, the human who had sent the message. He stood alone, not bowing, not flinching, simply meeting her gaze. There was no arrogance, but no hesitation either. Just calm and confidence. Leora's mind registered something she rarely felt, curiosity. She had faced many commanders, many brave warriors, many who believed themselves fearless, but something about this human made her pause. "Commander Leora," Ethan said, his voice steady and clear. "Welcome to our colony. I hope your journey was safe." "It was," Leora replied, her tone neutral. She studied him. His posture was firm, but not rigid. His eyes were alert, calculating, yet not hostile. Most species, when facing her, displayed subtle fear, tiny signs she had trained herself to notice. Ethan had none. "Your message intrigued us," Leora continued. "Few send messages without demand or threat." "Why?" Ethan shrugged slightly. "We want to understand, not challenge. But we also believe understanding begins with courage, and courage begins with facing what frightens others." Leora blinked, caught off guard. His words were simple, but their meaning was clear. He was not afraid. Not of her. Not of her reputation. Not of the stories that followed her across star systems. and he seemed to know exactly who she was. "Interesting," she said finally. "Very well. We will talk, but I must warn you, few survive an encounter with me unscathed. Most learn respect, some learn fear." Ethan's lips curved into the faintest smile. "I am ready to learn." For a moment, Leora studied him in silence. The humans around him looked calm, supportive, and surprisingly organized for what she had expected to be a primitive colony. There were no flashy defenses, no overwhelming displays of power, yet she sensed something in their coordination, in their calm confidence that was different. "Very well," she said, gesturing for her officers to step back. "Show me what makes you human. Show me courage." The humans led her to a large hall, simple but functional, filled with charts, holographic displays, and what looked like simulations of space and planetary systems. Ethan began to speak, explaining their strategies for survival, for exploration, for conflict resolution. Leora listened, carefully noting every move, every calculation. It was during this exchange that she realized the humans had something her fleet had never encountered: adaptability. Where the Zinthari relied on strict protocols and precise calculations, humans used instinct, creativity, and improvisation. They considered possibilities she hadn't accounted for. They adapted to her questions, her challenges, without hesitation or fear. Leora leaned back, intrigued. "Your methods, they are unconventional," she said. "They are unpredictable." "That is often our strength," Ethan replied. "We think beyond patterns. We act when necessary, even if it seems risky. Sometimes courage is not about being unafraid. It's about acting despite fear." Leora's mind raced. She had trained her entire life to recognize fear, to suppress it, to use it against her enemies. And here was a human, small and unassuming, standing before her and challenging everything she believed about strength. The day passed with discussions, demonstrations, and exchanges of ideas. Leora tested Ethan and his team with small simulations, expecting to see hesitation, mistakes, or fear. But the humans adapted. They learned quickly, acted decisively, and even surprised her with solutions she had never considered. By evening, Leora stood alone on the observation balcony of the human settlement, looking at the twin suns setting over the horizon. She felt something unfamiliar. Respect, yes, but also a quiet, unsettling realization. She had faced countless beings across countless star systems, and none had made her feel this way. Not fear exactly, but a sense that she had met someone truly remarkable. Jor-El approached quietly. "Commander?" Leora did not turn. "Prepare the fleet for now, Jor-El, but keep all ships ready. These humans, they may be small, but I have a feeling we are only beginning to understand them." Jor-El nodded, sensing the change in his commander. For the first time in memory, Leora's calm authority carried a hint of curiosity, and perhaps even anticipation. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Ethan Vance stood in the hall, unaware of the storm of thoughts he had set in motion. Leora had always believed no one could intimidate her. And yet, in a strange way, this human had already begun to do just that. Without raising a weapon, without shouting, without demanding anything. And Leora realized that the galaxy was about to become a far more interesting place.